All right, it's Friday. Ah, I'm headed to our cabin this weekend. My brother's birthday, my older brother's birthday, and he's making dinner for us. I don't, which is nice. Right, yes, right. Which is because I need to go home and then we need to pack and go to the cabin, for that sort of stuff. So obviously, we need to do that. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend and nice weather, hopefully. So. Although my brother is a big mushroom collector and stuff, so every time we go to eat at his house, we have a bunch of fresh mushroom dishes, which are really quite good. But it's you never quite know what you're gonna get. Kind of depends on like today when they go out and forage for mushrooms, what they find. So we'll see. Okay, what are we doing today in class? We're trying to survive the heat. I opened up a bunch of windows in the back, so if it gets cold back there, you can close them, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. Yeah, right. It's hot. That's right. So I opened up one there, and then this one a little bit. This one has some problems. I'll see if I can fix that. Well, the AC is still on, but the radiators, you can hear the radiators are on full blast. The radiators are on full blast in here, so it's heating it up a lot there. So just so you know, and it'll probably be that way for a week or so. So I wore a sweater today, forgetting that because last week it was cold, of course. And this week it's hot. So this is typical every year. This happens in these rooms. So there's nothing new. This is what we go through. Okay, what are we doing? So we're doing for loops here. So again, hopefully on Wednesday we did this printing off the diamonds. So again, we're doing review stuff today. So again, if you didn't get finished up on that, you can work on that. You don't have to get it all done. For the discussion, you have to pick one of these things. So you can do one of the real beginning ones or one of the more advanced ones here, certainly, and post. And then you want to reply to other people's posts, say something about the code. You need to say something more than good job on your code or something like that. You need to actually look at their code and say something, some sentences. Right now we have I have to bring in our TA. We have a new TA, Heba. She is an advanced computer student, and she's helping with the grading and scoring of the discussions and stuff like that. And she'll also be available for help with assignments and stuff like that. And online students will have that. So I'll try to post that, her contact information, but you will see her in the discussion area and things like that. Heba will be there. But again, something you like about the code or suggestions for how you approve the code, your own version of the code or output of you running the code, any of those things for that. So we're getting into this where this is getting a little more complicated, where there are multiple ways of running this code and writing this code there. So it is interesting to see how different people, on some of our easier assignments, there's basically just one way to do it. How many ways are there to ask, to say, enter your age and read in their age, and print out their age. There's only 3 statements and it's not a whole lot. But this is getting complicated enough. There are some ways doing this. For the assignment this week, and again, you're welcome to work on the assignment today if you want. There are 3 options here. All of them revolve using a for loop here. So so the first 2 are kind of traditional ones. One is like you're going on a trip and you're going to record your gas mileage. This summer I was with a friend of mine and we were stopping up by Ely to get gas. I always forget how specific he used to be a government employee. So he has this pattern where every time he stops and get gas, he grabs his little notebook and writes carefully the mileage and the date and how much gas and how much it costs in his notebook. So this is kind of like that there, because he used to always have to track all that. So you say trip 1, how many miles was trip one, and how many gallons did you use on trip one, and then trip two, how many miles you had, and how many gallons, and all this, and then you figure out your total miles per gallon here for these three trips. So you add up all the miles, add up all the gallons, and then you can divide the miles per gallon. You figure out the total miles per gallon for this. Now you could do this without a for loop, but we want you to do it with a for, well, you're required to do it with the for loop. And one thing to keep in mind is that we want it so that at some point, if we wanted to do for 5 trips or 10 trips, we could change this. So we're doing it for 3 trips, but it should be easily changeable for more trips with your for loop here. So that's the one of the options. The other option is, again, another little stat stuff where we want to enter 10 numbers and then calculate the total, the min, and the max of those 10 numbers. So you ask the user enter numbers, you read them all and you sum them all up, and you print out the min and the max here for this. And again, you have to do this in a for loop also for this. The last one is the leftover. They used to do this in this class related to this, and this is the hollow plus sign. This one is really hard. So if you want a challenge, do this one here. The idea is that there's these plus signs like this that you could enter here. And you ask the user what size plus sign would you like, and you can enter some value. It has to be the positive value, and it's divisible by 3. So 0, 1, -2, none of those work, but 3 would work. And if you enter 3, you just print off this 3 plus sign. So 3 means it has 3 stars in it, 3 stars vertically and horizontally. If you enter 6, it would do this, 6 stars horizontally and vertical. If you do 9, it's 9. If you do 15, it's 15 here. So this is hard to do, but if you really enjoyed the diamond one, you can do this one too. You're gonna have to put a bunch of different for loops together to do that. So do one of the assignments here. I'm going to jump into, well, yeah, I'm going to just mention something real quickly about the learning material that we didn't quite get to. So strings and for loops. So one thing that we'll see, and we'll talk about this more later, but you can get to each character in a string with a special command. So if you let's say we have the person enter a word or like a name or whatever, we read that into a string variable here. We can go word.character at, and then get each count of that character. We can also get the length of that, how many characters there are in that word by saying word.length. So a common thing is to say, if we wanted to print out the characters, for int count equals 0, count less than the word length, count plus plus, and you like here, you're printing out the word character at. So this will print out each character in the word one line at a time vertically. If you wanted to print out the characters backwards, you could print them out here. We're going to start at the word length. We're going to go until we're 0, and then we're going to subtract each time, and then we're going to print out each one. So with this character at, we can access characters in a string. So, and sometimes you'll see examples of that in here. Thought there was one. I'm going to jump to the practice problems in just a sec. I thought there was a exercise. Oh, I know. In this pair programming app here we started, I don't know, I don't think we got very far in it, but I will just mention one thing here, is this total, average, and min. You should work on loops that will calculate the total, the average, min, and max And you should have those kind of at your fingertips. So if you ever need to total something or average or find the min or max of something, you have something at that there. So it's nice just to have, those in a worksheet like this or somewhere else so you can create or work with stuff like that. So I'm going to put this in my sandbox. Let's just do a total one here. So I'm going to ask the user to enter a bunch of numbers and I want to total them up. So right now, it asks the user to enter 3 numbers. It will just enter a number. I can enter a number, enter another number. I can enter another number, enter a third number. And I want to add those numbers up here. So how do I add up a set of numbers here? So to do that, generally I keep track of a total. So I'm going to need another variable. And again, if these are integers, the total will be an integer. Now, every time I read in a number, I'm just going to add that to the total. And then when I'm done, I can print out that total. So now I can enter my numbers again. And it will print out the total. Well, now I add 1 to each number. I don't want to do that. I want to add each number the user enters to that total. Let's try and do that correctly. So. Okay, and I'll print out the total here. So again, for totals, we generally have to declare a total before we enter a loop. We have to, as we're reading or we're processing the numbers, we're going to add it to my total. And then at the end of the loop, I'll have the total. What would we have to do to find the min or a max here for a loop? So again, we generally need a variable for the min or the max here. And then we want to be checking if the current number is, like if we're trying to find the max, if the current number is bigger than the max, we want to set the current number to the max. So we want to use a little if then to check there. And you can do that for the min too for this. And some of these things, a for loops works fine. And some of these things, maybe a while or do loop will be a little better loop for these things. So, okay. So in review, I'm going to look at the practice problems and do maybe a practice problem. We'll do that. So again, so today we're going to spend time doing practice problems. There are some nice ones. So like standard loop sort of stuff is investment sort of stuff. You have $10,000 over 40 years, your 10% return every year. How much do you have at the end of 40 years if you start with an investment of $10,000 here? This is an exponential growth one. This is the classic question of rice on a chessboard. So if you have a chessboard with 64 squares, you start off with 1 piece of rice, and in the first square, in the next square, you double it to 2 pieces of rice. The next square, it's 4 pieces of rice. Next square, it's 8. How much rice is in the final checkboard square here? We are only doing 32 squares. Yeah, the chessboard. How many are there? Um, so, and can you do it for so a real chessboard has 64 squares. Our numbers are not big enough to do that size. So the challenge is to see how would you handle bigger numbers. Oh, I love the Isle Royale moose wolf population studies. I don't know if has anyone been to Isle Royale? Do you know where Isle Royale is? So Isle Royale is a little island, well, not it's a big island off of Lake Superior, and it's a national park. So if we look at Lake Superior, here's Duluth. If we go up towards Canada, this is Isle Royale National Park up here. And see how it's isolated from the park. And but when it freezes, moose and wolf can cross over to it. So every once in a while we get, well, and so there's a herd of moose on the park and some wolves on the park. And so scientists have been tracking the wolf and moose population over time here as it goes up. And typically, again, as the wolf population would increase, as the moose population would increase, the number of wolves would also increase there. And then sometimes we've had these crashes and stuff like that. So there's a model that tries to predict the size of the wolf and moose population. So that's here. We talked about words and stuff. A fun exercise is just to test if a word is a palindrome or not. So if you can look at each letter of a word with the character at, can you check if any phrase or word is a palindrome? So that's one of the options here too. So again, pick one of the practice problems if you want. If you've not done with the review exercises, if you're not done with the discussion, the printing off the triangles or the diamonds, work on that. Sound good? I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do the palindrome one because we haven't done much with strings here. I think I'm going to try out the palindrome one. So if you want to watch or listen along, and for online students, I'll just walk through this one here. But you don't have to follow along, of course. New project. Now the user enter a word, so we can do that. I'm trying to think of how to test out a word as a palindrome. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. One is a palindrome is where the first letter is equal to the last letter and the next letter is equal to the next to the last letter. So you can write a for loop that compares each letter to the other one. Gets kind of complicated with the even and odd spacing in there, but you can do that. Another thing what you can do is you can take a word and you can just reverse it, and then you can check if each letter is equal to the letter in the reversed word also for that. So that's another option here. I think I'm just going to compare each letter with the letter at the end of the word. So I'm going to start doing it without a loop and then add a loop to it. If so, I'm going to just print out the characters, I guess, to start with. System out print line. First character is and print out word dot character at and 0. And then the last character is word at. I'm going to need the size of. I'm going to make another variable int. The size is the word dot length. So the last character is going to be the size. So this actually isn't going to work because I'm going to need the size -1, but let's try that out. So my word is hat. And again, I'm accessing it index 3. So the size is 3 here because there's 3 characters, but the characters are numbered 0, 1, and 2 here. So I have to make sure that I am doing the size -1 is the last character in the word. Okay, hat. First character is H, last character is T. And that should work for any size word. Yep. Okay, so now I want to compare those two words. If this is equal to now if I enter a word where the first and last letter are, enter, it'll say the first and last letter are. Yeah. We've looked at strings, and with strings, you have to use the dot equals, but this actually character returns a character variable, not a string. So I can use just a direct comparison with that because this is a character, not I'm taking a string and just pulling a character type out of it. So now I want to do this in a loop. So now I'm comparing characters. I'm at one index with like early on, like the 0 character with the N character, and I'm in this loop with the index there. So it's comparing character 0 with 3, and then character 1 with character 2 there. And then it keeps going and actually goes 2 to 1 here. I can actually change this. But it would keep going. So if I entered a 4-letter word like book, it'll compare 0 with 3, 1 with 2, 2 with 1, and 3 with 0 again. I actually don't have to do these later ones, but for symmetry, I'm just going to leave them in there. The problem is now it just says if the characters are equal or not. So a palindrome, everything would be equal. So how do I want to keep track of that? I'm going to assume I have a flag like a Boolean. This is one of those places where actually a Boolean might be useful. Is palindrome. I'm going to say, assume it's true that this is a palindrome to start with. And then if 2 letters aren't equal, I'm going to say is palindrome is false. As soon as if it finds 2 characters that aren't matching, then we know it's not a palindrome. Otherwise, if they keep being all matches, it'll still be a palindrome. So I'm going to assume it's a palindrome and then check each pair of letters and see if I find a non-match, it's going to be not a palindrome. And then at the end, I can print it out. So if is palindrome is equal to true, then I'm going to print off the word, or maybe I'll print out the word. What did I call it? Word. Nice word. Is a palindrome. Else, I'm going to print out it's not a palindrome. It's not a palindrome. So let's see how that works. So enter a word. I'm going to say book. It's going to compare each letters, and it's going to say it's not a palindrome. Let's enter a palindrome here. So let's go. I'm going to make up a word. It is a palindrome. That looks good. I'm going to delete some of this printout stuff, I think. I don't need to be printing out characters. All right, so check the first letter and last letter, second letter, second last letter, or make a reverse copy. I did that. So let's try civic is our word. Civic is a palindrome. Walk is not a palindrome. One problem I have is multi-word phrases and also capitalization. If I type in this with different capitalization, so maybe I can just maybe tell them to do it all in lowercase, or I could change that. So I think I can say word equals word to lower and make it all lowercase. Uh, delete some of my printouts here. Don't need that there. Okay. I think the hard thing here is this sort of stuff where I'm looking at a loop. I'm comparing the character at the index with the size minus the index minus one. So again, I want to be comparing, like, check the first letter, that's letter zero, with the last letter. So if I have a four-letter word, I might compare the zeroth with the third. So with index equal to zero, that would be just character, that'd be index. But then here I want to compare it with the third, 0, 1, 2, 3 characters. Um, and so that index is the size is 3 minus the index, which is 0, which is still 3. But again, I don't want the third one. I mean, there are 4-letter word. If there's 4 letters in the word, I want to do one more, one minus there. So that this statement seems kind of weird. So, but that's what works for this. Okay.